the American middle class, what's happening in households that are financially struggling. This work can also be very, I hate the word impactful, but I guess I'm going to say it. Right? It can be very impactful. You get because it speaks again to not just the system, what's going on in the American middle class. Our research has been featured twice on the front page of the New York Times. This was about some racial bias in the bankruptcy system. More recently, this summer, we were moved to the bottom of the front page, so what can you do? About banks, the headline, if you can't read it, bankruptcy booms among older Americans, a safety net phrase. The punchline of that study is 1 in 8 people now filing bankruptcy are the age 65 or over. It was about 1 in 25 about 30 years ago. Great news. Right? Our article begins something like more Americans are beginning retirement with a bankruptcy instead of a pension. So when we get our data at the right, that's the cover page of our survey, we go out, we survey people who file bankruptcy in the past, and we've had more generous funding. We've even done telephone interviews. And what I want to show you is some data also from, not from our data, our data, but a research paper we did out of something called the Federal Judicial Center's Integrated Bankruptcy Petition Database. So it has every single bankruptcy case that gets filed in a year. We're doing random samples of 800 people a year. It's an ongoing project. At this point, we've got 6,000, back up 4,800 cases cleaned and ready to use. And so, we've got the usual problem, right? So thinking of variables, right? We're on the right. We've got, over the years, we've got over 2,000 variables, very rich data set, all sorts of information. On the left, the Integrated Petition Database, which is from the Administrative Office of U.S. Courts, so the AO. There's only 76 variables, and those variables are mainly information about how cases turn out, right? Was the case dismissed? When was it filed? All that sort of stuff. So all the really interesting things you might want to know about somebody who's filed bankruptcy or what's going on with the person is not in that database. They are in our database, but on the flip side, right? There we are with 5,600 observations, and the AO database has 4.5 million unique observations in it. So we have got the usual trade-off, right? We've got rich database, small number of observations, right? So I'd be interested with talking with people about how to make both of those circles really big. I'm going to just talk to you a little bit about bankruptcy law in 10 seconds, right? To understand kind of the research, you have to understand a little bankruptcy law. So bankruptcy law in 10 seconds, you can file Chapter 7, you can file Chapter 13 if you're a consumer, right? That's what you need to know. Chapter 13 is slower, more expensive, and less relief. You should also know that although this is a federal law, there is a huge disparity around the country at the rates at which 7 and 13 get filed. It's about, Chapter 13 is about 10% of the cases in Iowa, but in Louisiana, Georgia, it can be over 80% of the cases. So huge variation. Chapter 13, sometimes you might need it, but generally speaking, if you can file Chapter 7, you want to. So there's lots more analysis in our paper, but this is probably the figure that best describes our findings. African Americans, after they file bankruptcy, choose Chapter 13 at much higher rates than other races. There's no reason to think that the reasons someone might want to file Chapter 13 break down along racial lines. This difference holds up even after doing lots of controls and looking at it in lots of different ways. African Americans are twice as likely to file Chapter 13 as compared to debtors of other races. So we did this work now quite a number of years ago. So more recently, just over last year, we thought, well, this integrated petition database became available, not as rich, but more observations. So we will do a study using all of those data. And so we thought of this as kind of as a multi-level model that, well, you've got effects at the district level, the judicial district. There are 90 federal judicial districts. People file bankruptcy within their communities, and this is also something I'd be interested in talking about. Best we could do for communities or zip code level data, but then there are also individual case characteristics that matter. So just to kind of the punchline again, because I now have like 20 seconds, right? So there were a bunch of regressions, but this is just kind of the final one. After you do a control for everything, I was hoping I was going to be writing a different paper, but we came out again that the only variable that ends up really mattering is, at the community level, is the percentage of blacks in the zip code. So it ended up again being a story about race. We thought we were going to be doing a more subtle story about neighborhood characteristics that are kind of determining how people are interacting with the legal system. Again, we ended up finding the story was again about race. So